Hello, welcome to today's edition of Formation Matters. And something I wanted to reflect on today was how spiritual direction can help us live times that are out of the ordinary. For example, vacation. Now that we're in the Christmas season, a lot of us are probably taking a few days off, or even if we're going to work, life at the office might be a little bit different than what we're used to. And there does tend to be a little more space. And how do we live that in a way that our spiritual lives continue to grow? Okay, so first off, I think something that's important is to be realistic about our spiritual and our prayer lives during a time of vacation. For example, Christmas vacation. A lot of us will have our daily routine and we have our prayer, maybe in little chunks throughout the day. And these are, and this is something that we really respect. And this is good because one of the keys to growing in your spiritual life is making sure that you have commitments to which you are faithful and that there's a constancy there and really a sense of commitment, a sense of living it out well. So I think that's something that is extremely important. But then we move into, we move out of our routine, and the risk, and this is something that happens to a lot of people, is that we just kind of let everything go, right? And maybe I've seen a lot of people that when they're at home, they make sure they're going to mass every Sunday, but then they go on vacation and I didn't find a church. Okay, well, maybe some people, maybe they do go someplace where there's no church, but for most of us, the problem is more likely that we didn't do our due diligence in finding a good way to have our mass even during vacation. Okay, but then if I am more committed to my spiritual life and I have more acts of piety or prayer times throughout the day, well, then it's good to see how does this look realistically during a time in which I don't have my ordinary routine, in which I'm not, simply at home or, have my work schedule. And some people, maybe it's even easier to pray when they go to work because they're able to take a coffee break and get in some spiritual reading, whatever it is. But, looking realistically at the next week, these next 8 to 10 days, how am I going to integrate my spiritual life into this, right? And there's a few different things that I would really recommend. One, daily mass. If there's any way to make it to daily mass during this time of Christmas, I think that's something that is tremendously helpful in order to make sure that you're giving a spiritual sense to everything that you're living, right? So, look at the options that you have there in your area. Maybe a few of the different parishes have daily mass at different times and see what would work for me, and looking at the commitments that we have during this time. Because even if we don't have maybe the intensity of pressure that comes from work or from being in school, we do probably have some social obligations or family obligations that we have to take care of, right? So it's something to keep in mind and to notice. Then another thing that's always very helpful for a spiritual life is to make sure that we have a morning offering. So here too, and how do I do this? And how do I do this in a situation where I'm not, dealing with my ordinary circumstances? Well, maybe I need to make sure that I get up and maybe I go out for a walk because maybe that's going to be the best place to do my morning offering. If the house is a little bit crazy, or maybe I get up a little bit before there's all the craziness and the wonder and the hubbub of having everybody around, and I make sure to take my 5-10 minutes in order to really place my day in God's hands. And just like morning prayer, one that might be more difficult for a lot of people would be my night prayer, where I'm making an examination of my conscience and thanking our Lord for the day that we've just lived. And this is something that's really easy for a lot of us to leave by the wayside, that we don't take that time at the end of the day. But it's something that's so helpful. So it's something that I would really recommend to you, because you'll notice that examining your conscience, seeing what you could have done better, and then thanking our Lord for the graces is a great way of making sure that we're taking advantage of these times, which are also extraordinary, not what we're living all the time. Because the goal here is that even when our prayer commitments might look a little bit differently than they do the rest of the year, nevertheless, we're offering that space so that God can work in our hearts and pour His grace into our hearts. All right, so I hope you have a great vacation. Hope it's a time of spiritual growth, even if the intensity or the frequency of some of your prayer times might be a little bit different than what you're accustomed to. And I hope you give me a like and a subscribe. God bless.